Judy, take one.
What do you think is interesting about advertising? Okay, go ahead. What do you think is interesting about advertising?
I don't think there's anything that's not interesting, Todd. I mean, I love every aspect of it. I love the creativity. I love the message to the people. I love the fact that you can change people's minds about things through advertising. I mean, don't you love influencing people in lots of different ways? And that's really what you're doing, is influencing what they want to buy, what they want to eat, where they want to travel. I just think that's the part of it that I love.
Tell me what you think of advertising. You spent your career, you mentioned your career in the newspaper business. Why is advertising an important part of the content, and why is it news? Why does it work as news? Why is it part of being an informed consumer? Right? Why is it part of the offering of that newspaper?
Well, truthfully, it's part of the offering of the newspaper because it pays the bills. It pays for the news department. But I think the reader sees it as a package. You're getting news about people, you're news about your community, but you're getting news about the retailers and what they have to offer. I just think it's, to the reader, it's one complete package, and all of it is information that they value and want.
During your run with the Roanoke Times, it was, in many ways, in my opinion, a great newspaper. It was one of the highest metro penetrations in America at a time when there were a lot of strong newspapers. What made you? Tell me about what was special about the Roanoke Times during that time.
I think one of the things that was so special was the integrity of the newsroom. I mean, I can't tell you how many times advertisers have tried to influence the news content. It didn't happen. The integrity was basic to it. It was always honest. It was always above board. You could count on everything you read in the newspaper. You knew it was going to be the truth. And I think that's what people want. They want local information. And today it's more local than it was then. At that point, there was a lot of national and international news, much more so than we have today. And I think at that time, people saw that as the in-depth look at the issues of the day.
I'm sorry, I do tend to jump around.
That's
A
okay.
lot of different subjects to cover. What do you think has made Roanoke? What do you think makes Roanoke a special advertising market? What is different about Roanoke than almost anywhere?
That's a tough question. The geographic locality, I think, is part of it. It's a pretty succinct market. Being the largest city in Southwest Virginia, there aren't too many competitors around here. I don't know.
Yeah, I would
That's a
say
hard
Roanoke's
question.
kind of built in the bowl.
Yeah, well, it isn't a bowl.
It defines us. It creates a palette for us, but it also limits us.
It insulates us, yes.
Yeah, and it's one of the things that are one of the things I find interesting in. Why do you think a community benefits from the presence of strong creative minds working in the community?
I think that's very, very important. And I think all you have to do is walk down the streets of Roanoke and look at the art that's there. I mean, you see sculptures, you see Betty Branch's sculptures everywhere. You see the murals on the walls created by local people. You see the iconic H&C coffee sign. You see the star that you mentioned earlier. I mean, that is a decades-old symbol of a collaboration between the business and the community and the artists. I mean, it's all there. But I think maybe there's more than that, Todd. I think when you have a strong creative community, you have a different perception of things. I think really creative people see things from a very different standpoint than somebody like me who's not particularly creative. And so I think that they add a depth to any discussions about local issues, about opportunities for growth here. I think they lend a depth and a broadness to those discussions that without that mindset you would never, ever uncover.
I have an odd question for you, and if it takes you a moment, of course I've already thrown a couple odd questions at you, but if it takes a moment to contemplate this, that's fine, but it is interesting to me that women, especially in the advertising field in Roanoke, seem to be doing things of significance at a time where women were less able to in bigger cities. I mean, sure, you had your the Mary Wells and that, but not many. But here we had, you know, you were considered a business leader at a time when a lot of women were not. You had Julie McDowell was one of the first people to be awarded some pretty significant national awards when a lot of women were still in the typing pool in a lot of big cities. Claire Maddox was running an agency here when that just wasn't a common thing. Why do you think that advertising? I mean, we're a lovely southern town with many southern influences, but it seemed, I was looking at the 1950s ad club minutes, and there were women in leadership positions then. Why do you think there was opportunity why has there been opportunity in the creative fields and in the advertising field for women that was open at a quicker time than it was in other businesses here? And you may not buy my whole premise, but
no, I think you're exactly
as I
right.
thought about it, the more I looked at the Julies and it was interesting.
Yeah, very much so. And I've always felt that for me personally, I benefited from a lot of opportunities that even 10 years earlier wouldn't have been available to women. But your question about why that is, and even more so in Roanoke, do you think it was more so in Roanoke than in other markets at the time?
I'm inclined to think that. And one of the main reasons, and granted, you can say these are anomaly people, but there are several. But, you had, Claire was running a fairly successful agency.
She was.
At a time women weren't doing that very much. Yeah.
And maybe it goes back to the insularity here, the fact that we are sort of confined, the fact that it's a smaller market. It's easier to make a mark in a smaller market, I think. And maybe the community, the advertising community, was just more ahead of its time, more open to women being successful in it. What do you think?
I think I do think that's a possibility. Another one that I failed to mention that was interesting is, we talked to Claudia Whitworth the other day.
Did you?
Who was running, she was working in her dad's newspaper in the 40s and was running since the early 70s. Interesting lady.
She's fascinating.
She didn't have a lot to say about advertising, but she had a lot of interesting perspectives anyway. What did you enjoy? What part of your what aspect of working in advertising did you enjoy most personally and find most rewarding?
Oh, I think for me it was the opportunity to help businesses achieve their goals. I just really felt that that's what our purpose was, to help businesses succeed. And we had a lot of opportunities to do that. And when I look back on it, Todd, one of the tools that I think I enjoyed using the most was the survey information that the Roanoke Times had. Do you remember that? The surveys we did every other year, total market surveys in Roanoke and the New River Valley. We had an in-depth amount of information about consumers and their buying habits, why they shopped at certain stores, how often they shopped, what they bought. And the advertisers loved it. I mean, they couldn't wait to get the next survey. And you know, we used it to help them become successful, to pinpoint areas where they were strong or areas where they had opportunities to grow. And, you know, sometimes that was tweaking their advertising, but sometimes it was things like, well, there's an opening here. You need a location here. Or you need to work on customer service. People are saying that your salespeople and your clerks are not being polite to them. I mean, things that they might not want to hear, but in the end, it really benefited them.
Well, I agree entirely. It's all nice to do an ad that's cute, but if you do a cute ad that doesn't do anything for the client, you really haven't.
Absolutely not. If it doesn't bring customers in their door, it's not worth their money.
The best thing I did, and very few advertising people ever did this, is I ran the shop for 4 years. That's how I made my money between the time I got laid off in associate advertising and got the job at the Roanoke Times. So I knew if I spent $100 in the newspaper, I needed to get $200 back to make it even more.
You had the numbers to prove it.
So, and I think it's kind of something that's rare and maybe helps me in that aspect of it. But,
Well, if you can put yourself in your client's shoes, then you can do a much better job for them.
of the many people you've met in advertising, who do you admire most and why?
Well, for me, that person is Bruce Bradley. He was a mentor to me and to many, many other people. He just stands out. I would not be where I am today. I would not have had the success that I've had if Bruce hadn't taken an interest in me and had not counseled and guided me. I mean, he gave me my first sales job when I had absolutely no sales experience and wasn't even sure I could do it. But somehow he knew I could. And over the years, there have been many people that he has helped like that. I mean, he's just a phenomenal leader. He is an idea generator, and yet he's more than willing to turn that idea over to someone else and let them run with it and never supervise them closely. I mean, he just assumed that things were going to work out, you were going to do your very best, and it would be okay. I mean, working for him was just unbelievable, as you probably know.
Tell me, are there any, tell me a local advertising campaign you remember that you liked, that stood out to you? Could be a long time ago, could be day before yesterday, I don't care.
Okay, I will tell you, and I warned you that most of my comments are too newspaper oriented, but when I thought about this, I thought about the Business Leader series that the Roanoke Times ran. This would have been in the early 80s. And it was produced in our creative services department. It was actually Bruce's idea, but they produced it. Do you remember that? Okay. You know, it was a labor-intensive operation because we had photos of each one. We ran full-page ads. There must have been 12 or 15 of them, maybe. And they were all profiles of various business people, so that there were bankers and auto dealership owners and little retailers and large retailers, and the copywriter had to go out and interview them and take photographs. And I don't know how they softened that image so that it didn't look like a photograph in the ad, but they did. And the readers loved it. I mean, they were really engaged in finding out personal information because the questions covered things like your comments about the community, how do you feel like about the place you live, the organizations you belong to. It was just a lot of personal information and what books you've read. So they felt like they got to know those people. And then at the end of it, each one of them got, of course, a framed page, and a lot of recognition from their peers and their friends. And we got a lot of awards for it. It was just a fun thing to do because everybody who was engaged in it liked it. You know, that's not always the case, as I'm sure you well know.
I've had more than a few things that I have failed to sell, but I wanted to revive that series when I was there, but with having people like Frosty talking about how to read a newspaper
Oh, see,
and the value of it, and I never could talk.
I'm sure you couldn't talk anybody into it, but that
No.
would have been wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I did run that question by a couple of my colleagues from the old days, and it was interesting. One person mentioned the Sydney ads. Was that before your time? Must not have been. You must have been around by that time. But they had the back page of the Spectator every week, and the local photographer did it. I think Carl Phillips was the photographer. Did the photography for the ads, and they were just really, really well received. And other advertisers were just biting at the bullet to get that back page location. But that's the one she remembered. So I thought that was kind of interesting comment. She was young, started on the staff just about the time they were in their heyday.
We used to, when I was with Associated, we would buy Rusco and Spectator was every week, and it's funny because Spectator was great, and when it quit being great, it quit being great fast.
Yes, when its time was over, it was over.
Yeah. Although, did you know about 2 years ago somebody tried to revive it?
No.
2 or 3 years ago. I told them it was a nut. I knew it. I said, I like you, and you need not to do this. You will waste your money.
Well, the time has passed for it.
Oh, yeah.
It's just that people get their entertainment news, their TV news in other ways. They find out how the programs run just by scrolling the screen.
Yep. My youngest hates it when I do the channel flip. She says, no, you look at the guy. You don't flip through the channels. So, do you have any interesting or funny stories that happen? I found the Times to be a wonderful place to work. What was anything funny that you remember, particularly from ad related?
I remember the time that we offered a major advertiser, the Kroger company, the opportunity to use scented ink in their ads. Were you there for the scented ink? Well, one of the ink manufacturers had developed this scented ink, and it came, grape was the one we used. So they ran this full-page ad for grapes with this huge bunch of grapes on it and printed it with this scented grape ink. Well, it worked beautifully. I mean, every paper smelled like grape, and the readers were calling in, wanted to know what happened, and they were pleased with it. Sold a lot of grapes that week. But we never thought what the press room was going to smell like, because that grape scent hung around for days. It smelled like a vineyard down there. You couldn't walk through there without exhaling grape scent. Needless to say, it was a short-lived term. I think we did one more for strawberries, and that was it.
Oh, that's a good story.
I mean, you can imagine the pressmen down there. You know how they were.
Some of these questions are a little more agency related, but your stories are
That's
great.
okay.
You've done wonderfully. I think I kind of asked you something that was right up to the edge of this before. Did you ever? Actually, you've covered all my questions. You've done really. I mean, I love some of your stories. It's great. I'm gonna have to now go and find that Kroger ad.
Oh, I'm sure it's long gone.
You'll be surprised because I'll get it at the I'll get it out of the archives at the library. I can get the microfiche.
But it's not going to smell like grape.
It went on the videotape anyway. So.
I know. But that was a funny time.
Oh,
I've covered all your questions. I'm sure there were other questions on the list she sent me.
You've really done a pretty good job. You told me how you got into advertising. You definitely told me what you love about it. You told me your most impactful campaign, a great funny story, advertising person you most admire. This might be a little bit different. Who's the most talented person
I liked that question a lot because it caused me to think about things, about the future and about the past. And I would have to say, Todd, that I think Tony Pearman is the most talented person in the advertising industry that I've had a chance to be with.
You stop and we'll just pick it up. My water cooler just kicked on. It will only take a second.
Oh, that's okay, I don't mind.
Yeah, it will only take a second, but it's noisy. I can't figure out how to turn it off. I know there's got to be a switch somewhere.
For the cooler?
Yeah.
I don't know. Unless you can turn it off on a circuit breaker, maybe.
Yeah. I don't. We built this a couple years ago. I'm not sure why, but it's handy to have when we do. Okay, tell me again who the most talented advertising person you worked with was and why you think that.
Well, truly, there are any number of extremely talented people. I mean, you think back over history, you think about people like Howard Packett and Mamie Vest and Julie McDowell, Dale Poindexter. It's hard to pick and choose, but I try to think over a period of time. And truly, Tony Pearman exemplifies what the old ad leaders were all about, I think. And because that's important to me is I see him as a bridge between the past, carrying forward the ideals and the plans of people who are now long dead, into a future that none of us know what it's going to be yet, or who's going to be in it. So I think one day he will be the person that we're sitting around talking about 50 years from now. And I think that because he exemplifies all those traits. He's creative, of course. I mean, that's a given. You have to be creative. But he's also got the ability to identify and find the people that he needs to build his agency, people to lead different aspects of it. I mean, I watch him hire very, very carefully. He does well with that. And he has the foresight to see the marketing trends that are changing, social media, for instance. I just think he's all of the things that those people were, and some still are, and he's got more than that. He's built this into a powerhouse agency. There's no doubt about that. I mean, this agency's known all over. He's committed himself to the Ad Federation. He's done work locally and district-wide and nationally. He's done things that have changed the way the Ad Federation works. And he commits himself to local organizations, to caring about people who need help. I mean, the work he does with child abuse and the awards he's received for that, I mean, they just exemplify what the people who were in this business 50 years ago cared about.
That was beautiful. That was beautiful. I think you did a pretty good job on the how do we benefit from a strong creative community. Let's try one more time with the and don't let me forget that I need to get photos from Juliet who will kick me. What do you think makes running advertising in our community special? We tried that earlier, but we've had a lot more time to talk and chat.
I think one of the things that makes it special is because it's so closely knit. I think that the advertising professionals work extremely well together and support one another. I mean, in some markets, there's a lot of competition and infighting and going after each other's clients, but I don't see that happening here. I mean, if it happens, I'm not aware of it. I think that caring about your fellow workers, whether they're in your shop or someone else's, is important. And I think it helps you to be more successful when you have that kind of a mindset towards the people you're working with. Not to mention the fact that they're extremely creative here. I mean, very creative. All my life, I've watched this and I thought, how do people come up with these ideas? So I still haven't gotten where you want to be.
No, that was fine. That was actually excellent. You had things that people in many industries, but certainly in advertising, the attitude is, wow, to really make it, you need to go work in the big city. Do you feel like we have big city level talent here, big level city?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, you really don't need to go anywhere else because we have the best and the brightest and the most creative. I mean, if I were buying creative today, I mean, I wouldn't think about going outside this market. I would much rather deal with somebody who is as professional as these agencies are, who has the staff and the depth of opportunities to produce for you. I mean, why would you want to? It's like buying local fruits and vegetables. If you've got it here and it's great, use it.
That is fantastic. We ever do a local advertising commercial, that would be perfect. Rivals doesn't really apply to you because, I mean, yeah, of course you compete against TV or whatever, but that was. Have you ever had an idea that came up that you were in the meeting or you had yourself that was just great but you couldn't sell?
Yeah, probably lots of them, I expect. Right now, I can't think of one. But everybody's got ideas that just didn't fly.
That's the